Learning a new language can be tough, especially when it comes to remembering all those new words. We've all been there. You spend hours studying, only to forget everything in a matter of weeks. When I was learning Japanese while living in Japan, I faced the same problem. It was frustrating to forget the words that I had worked so hard to learn, and even more frustrating to struggle to use them in conversations with my Japanese friends. I knew I had to change my approach, and today, I want to share with you the one small change that made a significant difference in my language learning journey. When I was living in Japan, I would often go to a cafe on the weekends and create a bunch of flashcards. My aim was to write down 50 new expressions every weekend, with the Japanese phrase on one side and the definition, translation, and example sentences on the other side. I was studying for the JLPT at the time, and that method of memorizing words worked wonders in helping me pass the test with flying colors. However, I noticed that I never used any of the words I learned in my conversations, which was a bummer. Sadly, after the test was over, I forgot a good chunk of what I had memorized. When I was in Japan, my main goal was to become a better Japanese speaker rather than just passing the JLPT. But I soon realized that cramming tons of words in my head wasn't helping me much. So I decided to switch things up a bit. I started focusing more on my expressions and how I could use them in my everyday life instead of just memorizing everything in my textbook. For example, we learned the expression more or less from this podcast a couple of weeks ago. Instead of just memorizing the expression, take a moment to think about how you can use it in your everyday life. Like maybe helping a lost tourist in your city by saying, "The train station is down this street. It's 10 minutes more or less." Or using it with an American coworker by saying, "The event last night was a great turnout. There were 50 people in attendance, more or less." If you could think of a situation where you can see yourself using that expression in your everyday life, then that's the phrase worth remembering. But if you come across an expression that interests you, but you can't imagine yourself using it, then don't waste too much time trying to remember it. Just aim to understand it when you hear it. I used to try and memorize 50 new phrases a week, but I soon realized that it wasn't the most effective method. Instead of mindlessly memorizing words, I started to take a few minutes to imagine myself using them in my daily life. If I felt like it was something I could use, I marked it as words for using. If it was a phrase I couldn't see myself using, I marked it as words for understanding. I then narrowed down my list to just 3 to 5 expressions that I could use in my everyday conversations. I practiced using them with my coworkers, or I'd even speak to myself in Japanese. Soon enough, these new expressions became a natural part of my vocabulary and came out effortlessly during conversations. So, it's not about how many expressions you memorize, but how much you can use them in your daily life. That's why I recommend focusing on practical expressions that you can see yourself using and practicing them aloud every day for a week. It made a massive difference for me, and I'm sure it will for you too.